There's a point where your past stops explaining you and starts limiting you. Not because it didn't matter, and not because it didn't shape you, but because you're still organizing your life around something that already happened. And at some point, that becomes a choice. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Rebuilt Different. I'm Epiphany Page. And today I want to talk about the moment where your past stops being the reason and starts becoming the ceiling. So I was just watching the new season of Love is Blind, which I'm sure a lot of us have. And by now, I'm sure at some point or another, we've all heard about Alex, who talks about over and over about how he's had 4 knee surgeries and was supposed to be drafted into the MLS. And every time he brings it up, you can hear how much that moment still lives in him, how his life was supposed to go one way, but didn't. And that kind of loss is real. When you build your identity around something and then it's taken away, it's destabilizing. But what stood out to me wasn't that it happened, it was how much it was still leading him. And this isn't about him specifically. This is something that a lot of people experience. Your identity forms around a story, something you lost, something that hurt you, something that didn't go the way that you planned. And for a while, that story makes sense. It explains your hesitation, your reactions, your patterns. But eventually, you stop living forward and you start living in reference to something that's behind you. And you see this a lot when people talk about their parents. And honestly, I've said it too at different points in my life. I would be different if my parents had done this. I would be further along if I'd had more support. And those things can absolutely be true. Your environment shapes you. It affects how safe you feel and what you believe is possible. But eventually, you're left with yourself, as you are now. Not who you could have been, not who you are supposed to be, who you actually are. And this is where accountability enters, because there's a difference between something explaining you and something excusing you. And holding yourself accountable means accepting that while you didn't control what happened to you, you do control what happens next. And not everyone wants to do that. Not because they're incapable, but because it's a lot more comfortable to keep using the past as a reference point. It gives you a reason. It gives you something to point to. It protects your current identity. But it also keeps your life exactly where it is. And this is the part that people don't always want to hear. No one's coming to save you. Not in the way that you might have imagined. Not in the way that restores the version of your life that you thought that you were going to have. The only person who can meaningfully change your life is you. And that requires something that a lot of people avoid, which is introspection, real self-honesty. Not just understanding why you are the way you are, but asking yourself if you want to stay that way. Because it's a lot easier to explain yourself than to confront yourself. Sound familiar? It's easier to point to your past than to take responsibility for your present. But the moment that you stop waiting for something external to change your life is the moment that you start changing it yourself. Your past will always be part of your story, but it doesn't have to be the part that leads it. At some point, your life stops reflecting what happened to you and starts reflecting what you're willing to take responsibility for now. And that's where real ownership begins. All right, guys, that's been another episode of Rebuilt Different. Thanks so much for watching. If this resonated with you, send it to someone who's still waiting for something outside of them to change their life. And if you felt uncomfortable at any point during this episode, sit with that. And I'll see you guys next week.